Following the events in Japan for this week's CoreGap report, what we really want to focus on here at Wikistrat is the impact on the global economy and how this may have some serious impact in terms of how we think about energy going forward. In terms of the global economy, we are talking about the third largest economy in the world. About 8%, as much as a tenth of Japan's GDP growth has been impacted by this tremendous disaster. But history says the Japanese do respond to this kind of challenge very well, and you will see a reconstruction boom. So not a great sense that Japan will be derailed by this alone, but in combination with other things going on in the global economy, certainly their fragile recovery somewhat affected. In terms of the larger global economy, don't think it's going to have an overriding impact. Much more in the energy realm do we see the danger for the double dip recession. Shifting to energy, there is impact from Japan's situation, obviously, because of the tremendous and in some ways unprecedented damage to this coastal nuclear power plant and the reactors there. If you look globally, we're talking about the so-called nuclear renaissance, as many as 300 plus nuclear power plants planned around the world, 100 plus in East Asia, 100 plus in North America planned, 100 plus in the rest of the world. To the extent everybody stops and rethinks this process because of the danger and damage and disaster that ensues in Japan, that means very possibly much more switching to natural gas and much more continued reliance on coal. And both of those commodities obviously would be impacted in terms of price. You're going to see much more CO2 emissions on this basis, potentially long term. And of course, you may see countries moving much more aggressively into shale natural gas extraction, the so-called fracking approach, which has its own environmental questions about it. When you look not just at Japan and switch back to the Middle East, where the 2.0 Facebook revolutions are going on, obviously there's a lot of price pressure on oil as a result of Libya, for example. And if you factor in what's going on with Japan, the big disaster, the shifting that may occur on energy there, the price pressure on coal and natural gas that may result, obviously you've got pressure on oil. And if you look at the last five global recessions, every time there's been a major spiking of oil coming out of the Middle East, you see a global recession. So when you add it all up, all the price pressure, this hit that Japan takes, third largest economy, a lot of supposition now, and growing predictions that we're looking at a double dip in terms of the global economy, a second kind of downturn right on the tail of the global financial crisis from 2008. Obviously, as a result of what goes on in Japan, it's good to be in the business of natural gas-fired electrical generation plants. And our argument is you don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater on nuclear. These were 40-year-old versions of technology in Japan that were put at risk and ultimately failed here. There are a lot of new models coming out that don't require water pumped cooling, don't use rods, for example, the pebble bed reactors. So we think the future for nuke is obviously going to be this kind of smaller, modular, less dangerous type. And obviously we think everybody needs to rethink the wisdom of putting nuclear power plants in coastal regions.